What's your best fire me, I dare you moment from work, viewer edition? Story 1. In 1979, and as the most senior crew member of a concrete block plant that used a machine built in 1943, I was passed over for the third time for the foreman's job. I had done and mastered all 5 duties of that job, topping off at machine operator, the top job before foreman. The last foreman quit suddenly in a disagreement with management. I ran the shift that night just to find the next afternoon. Our truck repair shop's parts runner sitting in the foreman's chair. I saw red, and he said, "Now, Jeff, don't get mad." So I walked over to the plant manager's office and asked what the deal was. The plant manager said the guy had 2 years of business administration in college. I asked if he learned how to make blocks in college. "No, that's your job." "Uh-huh. I hope he's a quick study because he's got 2 weeks to learn what took me years to learn and another 6 months to perfect running a 36-year-old block machine that is lacking an operator's manual. I'm supposed to train somebody how to do a job that pays $2 an hour more than my job pays? Okay, you get $2 an hour less training. I showed the guy how to run the block machine exactly how it should be done. I forgot to show him all the adjustments that a 36-year-old high-stress block machine needs to make blocks that can be used to build on a hill, slanted tops, but are required to pass federal standards or the company can be held responsible if a building collapses, or how to adjust the automatic scales for when it rains so that the mud, as we call it, didn't come out of the 6,000-pound batch mixer looking like gray tomato soup. Ready-mix concrete out of a mixer truck has a lot more water in it so it can be poured. Concrete for a block machine is almost dry to the point that you can form it like a snowball. This is because blocks are formed under high pressure so that they don't run off the plates when they come out of the machine. The experience that I gained from this dirty job driving a diesel forklift, payload, or another heavy equipment turned into a clean job driving an electric forklift for a major juice manufacturer that paid 3 times as much and with world's better benefits. I worked there for 19 years, had 5 major spine surgeries not related to the job, but was paid in full by supplied insurance and collected full pay from company-supplied sick leave. I also went to 28 days treatment for alcoholism, paid for and full pay again in 1985. Many more paid benefits for my family and myself than I would have never seen from that block plant. I think that it's awesome that you got the hell out of there and got a way better job because clearly, A, that new job sounds so much better in every regard, but B, it sucks when a place that you have dedicated so much time and energy to has no respect for you. And these jobs that hire outside people to manage stuff that don't know how to do anything else with the job is how you end up with bad bosses who are just ineffectual at what they're doing. The fact that they passed you up was idiotic on their part because they missed out on having a great foreman and they lost you as a worker in the end. So I'm glad things worked out for you. Story 2. I worked for almost 3 years and as an electrical apprentice before starting in a company that was struggling along with just 2 guys in the field. They told me when I started that they had no use for an apprentice, so I'd be running my own truck. I was excited and looked forward to the opportunity to improve my customer service skills. After about a month, I got a raise that had been agreed on beforehand based on performance. After that, the owner started going a little crazy about inventory going missing. Never anything big, but definitely explainable by giving a customer the occasional deal. He had us start doing inventory by hand, at which point the hours spent making sure nothing was stolen definitely cost him more than any of these dollar items were worth. One morning, he came in, sat us all down, and convinced us he had sold the company. He made us believe that whether we kept our jobs would be up to the new owner. After we were thoroughly convinced that we were all effed, he laughed and told us it was a joke. Then we were expected to get ready for the day's jobs and go do them. After that, the incidents of erratic behavior just increased. One day he told me that it didn't matter how good at my job I got, I wouldn't be getting a raise unless I was certified as an electrician. So I was unofficially stuck. The real mistake he made, though, was showing me the books for the past year. The company had been consistently losing big money up until the month when I joined, at which point it suddenly went into the green. Numbers don't lie. So I'm the linchpin that keeps him profitable? Noted. Shortly after this, he told his secretary to post big red notes all over the office, must have been at least 20 copies, basically attacking us for stealing and threatening all our jobs if we didn't start complying with his ridiculous inventorying requests. Understandably upset, I tore down every single note I could find. They were even in the bathroom. When I set the stack of notes on his desk and demanded an explanation, he made himself as small as possible and tried to convince me that it was all his secretary. I'm pretty sure I laughed in his face, and I quit on the spot. Shortly after, the secretary quit, then one of the other guys in the field. So yeah, the moral of the story, don't pee off all your employees at once, especially if you're small business. The greatest investment that any business owner, manager, whatever, can make in the business is treating your employees well. Treating them with respect and trust. Because the dividends that pays out in the long run are incredible. People don't seem to get and understand this, but it's so easy. Just treat your employees better, they'll do better work, and stick around. It's not that hard. Story 3. I got one. I worked at a grocery store bakery for 5 miserable years. I only did it because we needed insurance coverage since my husband's job did not offer any. I was expected to keep 5 large refrigerators and freezers full of cakes. I was also expected to keep a gourmet dessert case full, do all cake orders placed by customers, and then crank out hundreds of cakes and cupcakes during the holidays on top of that to fill the extra holiday tables they'd set up. Needless to say, I was starting to develop some pretty bad carpal tunnel. It was getting to the point where I knew I was going to need surgery if I didn't stop. What made it worse was that the manager was very mentally abusive to all the employees, including me. She drove away a lot of good coworkers because of her abuse. She constantly berated and belittled me for not working fast enough. This was insane because I knew I was doing more work than any one person should do. I was doing this work on my own when other store chains of the same company with bakeries half the size of mine had a head decorator and 2 assistant decorators to help. What I didn't realize was that she was actually afraid of losing me. I found out after the fact another grocery store bakery called to ask if I'd like a lead decorator position at their chain, and she had told them no because, note, this is what my coworker heard her say, then told me I was her best worker and she'd never let me go. Then came the day my husband was able to get a job that provided full family insurance coverage. I put in my 2 weeks' notice. Abusive manager then starts asking me in the approaching weeks if I would stay. She was having problems finding a replacement. No one wanted to work in such a big store on their own. I told her no. She tried to guilt trip me. I didn't care and still said no. About 5 months later, I decided to go back and say hi to my coworkers. They told me that they had to get 3 people to do the work I had been doing on my own. I knew good and well I was doing work like no one else could, and that further proved it. Unfortunately, my hand and arm will always be a little messed up. My carpal tunnel has healed up without surgery better than I could have hoped for, but it's definitely not 100%. Decorating cakes has become a hobby instead of a career as once planned. I came to peace with it. I also started a YouTube channel to give myself an outlet. If anyone reads this far, please don't stay in a job that's hurting you physically or emotionally. It's not worth it. Alright, I'm not going to make a habit out of this, so commenters, don't expect big shout-outs, but this person got me talking about baked goods since I am also a former bakery employee. I found this channel. It's at Boxed But Better. Boxed But Better with Jenna, and she's just baking with box mixes, but shows you how to make that, upgrade them to better, professional-looking things in very achievable ways. There was one about a banana cream cheesecake that I'm not joking. I'm going to go buy the ingredients after I'm done recording this nonsense, and I'm going to make that because banana cream pie is my favorite pie, but also cheesecake is right up there, and now I can combine them? That's amazing. And the rest of you watching this, go to @BoxedButBetter and go subscribe to it because I want Jenna to keep making this stuff because it looks amazing. Story 4. Concerning the story at the 18-minute mark, almost the same thing happened to me, almost exactly the same. I was working as a quality control night shift lead, 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 3 days off. Day crew had 4 grown men working, and I had a very energetic idiot as my only other crew member. We recycled plastic, moving 1,500-pound bags of plastic around by pallet, jack, and forklift. Night crew tripled day crew production. After 9 months without receiving my company badge, I forced the issue. I requested another crew member and a raise. I'd been outperforming at my station. I thought I could use the help. Oh no, corporate gave me a dainty, pregnant 5'1" woman and denied my raise. 2 more pay periods passed, no raise, no badge, no more incentives. The woman was confused about her position even more than I was. She applied for a clerical position. I lost the only other crew member when he got drunk and arrested on his time off. He was an idiot. Not as stupid as corporate. Corporate threatened to fire me if I failed to keep my quota. I didn't show for my next shift. No call, no show. Ignored the phone and rode my motorcycle up to the mountains. Spent 3 wonderful days in the springtime Sierra Nevada mountains. Came back to collect my last check. These dip craps failed to realize I'm subcontracted. They broke the contract and thought I was a direct hire. I walked off with a smile. Business is business. As I left HR 6 months later, the company filed for bankruptcy. 9 months later, the owner was found guilty of embezzlement and narcotics trafficking. I got paid out the rest of my contract, got a way better job, and occasionally laughed at stupid people being stupid. Story 5. I wanted to be a special education teacher, but it didn't work out. I have autism and I tend to have a vibe of kind but incompetent. Some teachers liked me, some didn't. I currently work at a group home. If you're even probably able to haul yourself into work somehow, you have no felonies, you're hired. Really gave me a chance to prove my effectiveness as a worker and get past the negative first impressions, pretty much because they didn't have a choice. New applicants don't come around often, and those that do are typically college students that won't be around long. Sometimes enough to replace the outgoing college students, sometimes not. The branch manager, program director, is pretty awesome, and most coworkers are pretty cool. Everyone's a character, for better or worse. The main office for the company, though, they are cartoonishly oblivious. Very petty and we maintain the right to fire you at any time as an at-will employer, but we will do so if you do X, Y, or Z. Really, you'd give up the income of an entire branch due to a petty role that isn't even a legal requirement? Hint? No, you can't. Don't even try. They make so many meaningless threats and tend to be very domineering, or rather they try. They leave no room for branches to autonomously manage crises when crises are frequent, and it isn't like they will get back to you in time anyway. Add to this that without OT, and many of us accrue quite a bit, the pay isn't enough for a lot of people. As well as some people are just outright snobs when it comes to disabled adults. Obviously, we won't want them working anyway. And is it any wonder we can't get workers? We're constantly on the verge of chain quitting due to how few workers we have. One quits and the job becomes undoable. Bad enough if someone gets sick, as I am right now. Story 6. I worked at a medical billing office alongside a housemate of mine. I had the unfortunate luck to have gotten sick a lot during my first couple of months there, so understandably my boss called me to the meeting room to talk, but I didn't expect what he had to say. He was going on and on about how irresponsible I was and how he was onto us. I was confused, and he very angrily explained me and my housemate's devious plan of calling in sick only to go off to have fun together whenever we didn't feel like working. I told him I had no idea what he was talking about, and he told me he had proof. As it turns out, whenever I would tell my housemate that I had to call in sick after I locked myself into my room to be miserably ill all day, he would go to his room and call in sick as well. After some more berating by my boss, I actually looked him dead in the eye and said, "Look, fire me if you want to, I don't care, but I'm not going to sit here while you keep calling me a lawyer." My boss actually looked surprised, sighed, and calmly told me to not get sick as much anymore, and that was it. In retrospect, it's ironic that I later lost my job anyways due to COVID. So really your boss's problem was more with your kind of lying roommate, but also I can't stand bosses who get so strict and upset about people taking sick days. Just let people have 6 days. Don't make a big deal about it. And you know what? Let people have mental health days and stuff too. Let them use their PTO or whatever for that stuff, because a good boss knows that, hey, if an employee's really stressed and I can just give him a day off to just recenter, that's a good thing. Be a good boss. Story 7. Worked on an assembly line in a large automotive factory. Had to assemble some parts, not really a hard job, but you have to know what you're doing. So one day our production supervisor, one step above my direct supervisor, told me to assemble some special parts. These were for an order we weren't able to do for almost 4 weeks because the parts we had in stock just didn't fit in the way they should. So when I asked, have the new parts we requested for this order been delivered, he just told me to shut up and do as I was told. Assemble these parts. So I did. The trick in assembly was that you needed to meet a certain force for the part to pass the inspection after assembly done by a machine. And I knew perfectly well with the parts on stock, I'll never meet the required force because all of them would have a force way too high. So I took a sledgehammer, assembled about 20 parts, required were about 800 per shift, and then started pushing them into the inspection machine. Of course, they all failed. I went to the production supervisor, tried to tell him, but was cut off. So in that exact moment, I thought, dare me. I took the already assembled pieces off of the no-good exit and started pushing them into the machine over and over again. At the end of the shift, that a-hole came, saw the sheer number of inspected parts, about 2,000, and with a big smile told me, see, I told you they would fit. How many good parts do we get? And with an even bigger smile, I replied, round about 0. Story 8. I had a supervisor counting the seconds I would take on break. It took 2 minutes to walk from the back corner of the store to the opposite corner where the exit was. She accused me of taking far longer than I was, despite her telling me it was okay to take a few minutes extra because of the round trip outside and back to my station. I lost my temper in front of her and my manager and said, well, I scratched my bits for 30 seconds. You want to log that in your book? She looks at me and tells me she's offended. I tell her I was offended as well, and if she wanted to write me up for harassment, she could. I then looked my manager in the eye and said, go ahead, make the report and I will sign it right now. Then I motioned to the computer. The manager looks at me and tells me to go back to work. I never got punished for that, and I think I made my supervisor cry. I chalk that up as a win. Any workplace that has to start, really getting super ridiculously strict about break times and lunch periods is a bad workplace. It's not bad employees, because if the workplace is nice enough, employees will typically respect that kind of stuff. Maybe you'll have 1 or 2 outliers. Sure, fine, that happens. 1 or 2 bad apples who are, not respecting that, they can get talked to. But typically for workplaces good, you never have problems with that kind of stuff because employees don't dread working every minute that they're there and therefore aren't going to try and constantly, stretch their breaks as much as possible. Story 9. Worked at a McDonald's for a good while. Pretty good job despite these stereotypes. Performed well and was always a good and reliable worker. Almost to the point that they relied on me to keep their drive-through times down. On one of her slower days, some D-weed comes in and craps everywhere except the toilet. And I mean everywhere. And the manager on duty, who happened to be the only one I didn't like, tried to make the 18-year-old me clean it. Of course I said no and was met with, do it or I'll have you fired. I looked her dead in the eye and something similar to, you have 2 options. I say no, go back to work, you clean it, and we go on with our day, or you fire me, and I go home happy. You clean it anyway, and I find a better job. Considering that I know my worth here and know all the health code violations you all have, I strongly suggest the former. She walked away with a huff and went to clean the bathroom. And yes, everyone clapped. Story 10. I worked as a security guard for a while. We were always horribly understaffed, and I said yes to every single shift they asked me to. I worked 60 to 70 hours every single week and worked every single day. My site supervisor didn't like me because I was always tired, despite me pointing out I worked 12 to 16 hours every single day between 3 different buildings in the branch. He decided to try and fire me, and I basically said, I dare you. He did. The supervisor got heavily reprimanded and someone sent me a recording of the ops manager yelling at him saying, what the F is wrong with you? He covered at least half of our open shifts and was a great worker. I felt so gratified. I got a call the next day saying they really wanted me back and that they sent the a-hole supervisor to a different branch entirely for pulling that stunt. Now, maybe you're too kind of a person to have done this, but if they called you back being like, please, we want you back, I hope you asked for a bit of a raise or something. I hope you said, if I'm really that integral, aren't I worth a little bit more, especially for having gone through all this? Like, I think you deserve it, and clearly the ops manager thinks you deserve it, so... Folks, if you're going through something like this, remember, when a company actually says out loud how much they value you, that is a bargaining chip. Get yours. Story 11. New manager fresh out of college on mommy and daddy's money with a degree in leadership dynamics, despite her lack of it. She micromanaged, belittled, bullied, whined, and broke the roles she wrote for us, was very condescending, and a suck-up to the higher-ups. The worst parts were when she tried and succeeded to take away our break room, wouldn't let anyone go to the bathroom, and tried to make us stay after hours without overtime pay. Those mandatory meetings of hers were a waste of time. I never attended a single meeting. I never came to work on time. I purposely disobeyed her orders, sometimes even to the opposite. I'd sneak out early, I even talked back to her. She finally fired me, but by then I had dropped a monkey wrench into the works, so to speak, leaving a mess for her, and only her, to have to clean up. Story 12. Working a job, day shift with Mondays and Tuesdays off, coworker gets promoted to supervisor and I request his old shift, day shift with weekends off. I'm told that I have seniority and the shift is mine, but to give them time to get someone else for the weekends. I agreed since weekends weren't that demanding to begin with. 10 months later, they have a new worker hired and move someone from a later shift to day shift working weekends. I go to ask when I can change my schedule, and I'm told that since one of the workers on weekends is unreliable, they have to keep me on weekends. A month later, I put in my notice as I found a job working day shift with weekends off and $1 more an hour. Story 13. I never thought I'd have one, but I kept being marginalized when new workers came in. First was brushed off as the only thing preventing the guy from being overqualified was his age. After bringing in a person who never had any hands-on job experience, I finally said to a manager that I'm about ready to gamble my job, tell him I want to be in manufacturing and he can terminate me or report me if I don't get it right after 2 weeks. He advised me against, but I told him I'm at the point of wanting to leave, eventually got to the position I wanted. Story 14. I find it very difficult to look for a new job mainly because I'm just afraid of rejection. Luckily, my mom met someone who works for a disability employment agency while they were both going in for some minor surgery, so hopefully we'll get in touch soon. I don't mind my current job on most days, but our HR manager just has little to no HR skills at all. Don't get me wrong, she's a nice person and all, but she takes so long to get confirmation on the upcoming rosters, which we're supposed to get 2 weeks in advance. We usually get them on the weekend for the following Monday, and she only has a small amount of people working on a Sunday. I get that people have religious commitments and whatnot, but it shouldn't be that hard to find some people who'd be willing to work on a Sunday. It sucks so hard when a problem at a job is the person doing HR, because HR is also supposed to be kind of the person that you go to with your problems. They're supposed to be the one that's like preventing this kind of crap from happening, you know? I mean, theoretically, I guess. It's often not the case. But yeah, no, that sucks, and I'm sorry that you're having some issues finding a new job, but I hope that you do, and keep up the search, because boy, do you deserve to be someplace that's better about that stuff. Story 15. Concerning story 4 from the original video, wow, I have almost the exact same story. I worked for Burger King, and on my first day I was told to clean the men's bathroom. I was compliant, but when I saw how disgusting it was, I nearly cried. There was crap on the urinals and the floor, vomit on the toilet seats, stains on the walls, and the smell was horrible. I straight up asked my manager, "What is this, my initiation? I'm not cleaning that. You can send me home right now. This is the men's room. Send a man to clean it." I was 18, earning $5.15 per hour, and didn't care if I sounded entitled. Never went into that bathroom again. Not saying the women's bathroom didn't smell bad, but at least it was bearable. And not once did I find poop anywhere but inside the toilet where it belongs. Story 16. I got fired because I had at one point said I was considering going back to uni. Had a wild goodbye and cake and gifts and such. On my drive home, I got a phone call. They wanted to rehire me at least till I actually went back to uni. The surprise on my coworkers' faces after saying goodbye on Friday and saying welcome back on Monday. I wasn't a particularly fast worker, but I was very, very precise, which they found important considering I was handling custom jewelry orders and was responsible for the final order check, and in 4 years only had one error. 1 or 2 per month is common. And now, 20 years later, I believe I have actually found the missing ring and am going to try to return it if the company still exists. Story 17. I was working for an open pit mine. My wife was pregnant with my son, had many complications with the pregnancy. Also had nobody to rely on to help. Hell, even got in a damn car wreck coming home one night. Still went to work daily. Finally, my son was born and I took the proper steps to get emergency time off without pay. Went back, worked 2 weeks after that. They pulled me in to talk about my absences. I explained my situation to them. They told me I needed to grow up. I stated if growing up is choosing this job over my son, then I'm happy being a child forever, and dropped my stuff off and went home. My son will never be an option for me. He is my priority, no matter what. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.